Starlight Elena is hitting more divisions, and she seems like a very interesting unit. It's our first evasion-themed light unit, which is already fun, but I don't think she's as good as most of the other cost 100 units. Like, she is not Yuarzazan, Black Witch, Dwayne levels of good, she's not Kingmont levels of good, she's more like Regalia Glaciela levels of good, which is really strong, but not meta-defining, which is a good thing. We don't need more meta-defining damage dealers in War of the Visions right now. So today we'll take a look at her general role, stats, abilities, how to build her, and just in which areas of the game she'll shine and not. So let's go ahead with that. Elena is mainly a single target attacker. You will tell outside of her limit burst, she mainly has single target attacks that chain. That's what she does. She is a bulky evasion type character, so she can get as evady as Tifa, roughly. And she can also have courage, just like Tifa can. So very similar to that. She has top tier agility, so she is extremely fast, but her movement is 3-1. And yes, as a Korodama sub, she can increase that to 4 and 2. But to be honest, she has so many good buffs that she wants to cast prior to fighting that I don't think this will be your priority unless you're playing manually. Her main asset over other units is the fact that she can quite easily build chains. She's got 2-hit, 3 hits, and 4-hit moves, all with her main job NLB, so she's going to be able to chain like a mad lady. Then if we look at her equipments, she has swords, obviously, and then helmet, cloth, and accessory. That locks her out of a couple very important pieces. For evasion, she cannot use Duel's TMR, which increases luck in an AoE. But she doesn't have armor either, which doesn't allow her to use Keenblade. So if you're thinking manual content, a lot of the very important TMRs are things she cannot use. Her own TMR, however, is very interesting, and I think she'll want to run it more often than not. If you look at that piece of gear, it has crazy stats, like really good HP, good defense, good spirit, and evasion on top. And then the buff is interesting. It increases light, dark resist in an AoE, and slash resistance only for her. As per usual, don't pull Starlight Elena just for that piece of gear. Don't pull Starlight Elena just for the sword either, because you will be getting an exclusive sword if you get her, but these are nice bonuses if you want her. And then, like all the units lately, she will be increasing the HP and light attack for other light characters in your team, so that's a bit of a bonus. When looking at their stats, I want to compare her to other evasion units because that's her main theme, and compared to Tubi and Yuarzazan, Elena will be slightly less evady. She has a little bit less innate luck, but mainly not all the evasion passives these units have. So she has only 15 evasion from one of her passives, where Tubi, for example, has a master ability and Blade Soul on top. So she can't reach their top tier level of evasion, but she's not that far below either. She has a similar amount of HP, and then crazy magic at 570. Her agility is just 1 point below Yuarzazan, who is one of the fastest characters in the game, but he has a lot more mobility, especially with his access to Shikuchi, so there's a bit of a difference there. Where Elena really shines, I think, is her starting AP. So if you look at it, she has 73 starting AP, so she starts with half her full AP bar. She does not need bells to shine, and so that opens up a lot of extra options for her. Then, if we're looking at resistances, Elena doesn't really have a weakness. She is weak to dark, but she's going to be killing dark enemies very fast as well, so it's not that terrible. Then a 5% weakness to strike attack is not that terrible, and she's got 10% resistance to 3 other damage types. So overall, very interesting. Her status effect resistances are terrible though. Sleep is not something that's very common, neither is paralysis, and confusion, sure, I guess that's good if you're fighting an enemy to be. But no resistance to charm, to stop, to disable, which are the most terrible status effects in my opinion. So that's a little bit of a drawback. So if you're running Elena, you need her to be at 120. Don't bother building her if it's only for 115. She will lose access to her courage ability, and I think she needs that to be reliable. So we're not going to compare her stats from 99 to 120. If you look at her passives, I think you will always want the first one, Champion of Estria, up, mainly because that gives her all good stats. Like agility is really good, slash resistance penetration is necessary for her because almost all her good attack moves are slashing type, and then 15 evasion increases her survivability. Then it really depends the game mode you're playing in. I think your main competitors are Bathed in Sunlight because it nullifies stop. So if you don't have a way to protect yourself against stop and you know there is some in the stage, or you're fighting an enemy Katone or etc., you will probably want that. Otherwise, I would go for increased spirit penetration and accuracy, so sharp mind, because she has high luck, but we know that's not enough to fight an opposite evasion team. So the extra accuracy is very good. Otherwise, you know, if you're fighting mages, go for Dark Spirit's Blessing for the extra spirit, or you could just go for light attack up if you want to boost your magic-oriented moves as well, and not rely solely on slash attacks. So there's a lot of ways to go at it, but I would, in 90% of scenarios, use Champion of Estria and Sharp Mind. Then for counter abilities, if you're really relying on evasion to survive, Anti-Evil is decent. Like, it reduces accuracy right before the hit comes in, so it's a lot less chance that you get hit. It does not help you against guaranteed hits, however, so if you're fighting an enemy team that has guaranteed hits and you know it, for example for Arena, you probably want to switch to Sealed Ephemeral Form, because then you have a chance to proc and reduce the damage from these guaranteed hit attacks as well. So it's versatile. It would really depend the matchup. If I can choose, I would use Sealed Ephemeral Form against guaranteed hits, and if I'm going blind, I would probably equip that as well, because I'm afraid of ending up fighting an enemy team that has guaranteed hits and not being prepared for it. Then if we take a look at her Limit Break, it's actually very strong, but it's kind of redundant with other moves she have. The main asset that this move has over other abilities in her kit is the fact that it's a cross-shaped AoE, and basically, the rest of her kit will be single target attacks, so in a fight, she can throw a single cross-shaped AoE attack, and it's not even a very large one, but it will reduce counter chance to 0 for 3 turns for the target's hit, deal large damage, and then decrease agility. Something to note is, this is one of those LBs that you want to level, because everything scales. So if you have it at lower level, you don't completely nullify the counter chance, neither do you decrease agility by a ton or do a lot of damage. So it is going to cost you a lot of these Limit Burst potions, but it is one that's worth leveling if you're going to use it. It has a crazy high AP cost though, so she will be using up most of her 70-something starting AP if she uses that. Then, let's look at her main job, which is very interesting. The first thing I want to say is every single one of these moves has a height range of 1. So if you are fighting enemies that are far above or far below you, you can't hit them at all. And that is true for everything in Elena's kit. So that's also one of the struggles she has. No jump, nor ability to hit people that are in different elevation. When she does hit, she's gonna hit super hard though. So first move, deal damage, increases light attack, that's good to set her up for future turns. Her first buff, Evildoer Beware, is more of her defensive buff, so it increases her evasion and decreases AP consumption, which I like because she has the starting AP to use that. A lot of other characters like Freyavia have a decreased AP consumption on some of their heavy LB cost abilities, but you use up almost all your AP right before you use that, so you don't really benefit from the reduced cost after all. Whereas she starts with a high amount of AP, uses that in a TP buff before she attacks, and then it's actually a good buff to have. Then Crystal Shine Bright is the one that's redundant with her LB. It also reduces counter chance and deals the exact same mod of damage, but instead of decreasing the enemy's agility, it increases her own, and then it's a single target ability with a 2-hit instead of a 3-hit, so very similar still. She has one AoE buff that can reach, you cast in a square next to you and it goes in a cross-shaped pattern from there. It's a little bit weird, but it will increase attack and magic by 40% for the allies, and then increase her own AoE resistance by 20%. Not a bad buff. I mainly like that one because it gives her one form of AoE buff, which you can turn on or off depending on what you want her AI to do. So that's something that's really fun to use for arena modes or for guild battle, potentially. Then Gemini Blade, increased to Iridescent Blade if you have her EX job, is a 4-hit attack with a lower mod than Crystal Shine Bright. So it's a move that you will use strictly when you want to chain, or when you don't have that much AP. So there are some scenarios, but I think generally the move you will use the most is really Crystal Shine Bright, because it's a lot stronger. The mod is a lot higher. And then, of course, you have the Courage, which is just always so good to have, especially on a high damage unit like this one, so a very good pro for her. Then if we look at the Azure Pathfinder subjob, I would say it's overall very underwhelming, which is a shame because that's where she gets another of those cross-shaped attacks. If you want that, you kind of need to equip the subjob. But this Light Shall Bathe the World is a magic type attack, which is cool, different from all her other slash moves, which deals low damage, has a chance to immobilize, and then has that cross shape. Otherwise, you also gain access to Star Supernova, which is going to hit 3 squares in a line. It has a 165 mod, which becomes, if you're hitting a human, human or a demon, a 190 mod. So even then, even if you're hitting human, this move deals less damage than Crystal Shine Bright. So you have to keep that in mind. It is a little bit of an AoE, that's cool, but it's not her highest damage attack, even if it has the killer on. So don't think like you have to equip her sub-job to deal a lot of damage because it has the killer. That is not true at all. Then in terms of sub-job, I would say in manual, I would totally run Kododama Wielder, because you need jump and move +1 to make her reliable, and then you also gain access to a guaranteed hit attack just in case you don't have enough accuracy to deal with your enemy. So these are both very, very good. The AoE Confusion, meh. Arthur-Raining Pain, I guess you could use to move around, but usually you don't need that. Same for Spirit Breaking Pain. It could stun though, and she has high faith, so I could see some scenarios where this is good. And then you get an anti-magic barrier on top of your courage if you're fighting mages, so that is definitely a solid kit overall. Then Rune Knight is more of an auto setup kit, but it will be very strong. So I would leave Drain Evocation and Banish Blade on and turn off everything else. But with Drain Evocation, you cast Courage on turn 1, then on turn 2, if the enemy team's still not in range, you will walk and use Drain Evocation because it is her longest range ability, and that heals you back if you've got poken a little bit. It increases her magic by a ton because she has like 500 base magic, and then gives her some 40 more slash resist penetration for her next attack. Next attack will kill whoever it hits. So that's a nice setup. And then Banish Blade, if you are hitting a dark target, will have the highest mod in her entire kit at 225. So it's something I would leave on because once in a while it's going to be handy, potentially for one-shotting those Black Rose Helenas through her barriers maybe. I'm not too sure. But yeah, for auto, Rune Knight, and then for manual, Kododama Wielder, I think. Here is what I think will be a standard build. As per usual, I am not using any vision card from party members, so the stats would be a lot higher if you factor in more than her own. But with that, she's got really decent stats. 5,000 HP is not that much, but it is high enough that she won't die in a single hit, more like 2 hits, and then she has Courage on top, so make that 3 hits, with a decent evasion, which is kind of fun. At 99 agility, she is crazy fast. If you factor in the Bahamut VC on top, she can get way past 100, which makes her one of the fastest characters in the game. She's got low defenses though, so when she gets hit, she's gonna take a lot of damage, especially from magical attacks, because you want to run Elena at 97 Faith. Good partners for her will be naturally Summer Kilfei. It really mitigates Elena's weakness to magical attacks because of her 97 Faith. Kilfei will give her extra spirit, extra magic resistance, and she'll be fine. Kilfei also gives Elena extra accuracy, so especially if you're not running the Kododama sub-job, that will help you fight those high evasion teams. And then Summer Kilfei's Limit Break is a light resistance down, which also works well with Elena's kit. So they are really good natural partners. Same for Yuna, she'll benefit from the light resistance down, or the light chain can do serious damage, but can also grant re-raise on top, so Elena would be a pseudo Yuar Zazan, walking forwards with both re-raise and courage and crazy damage, which is kind of fun. And then another person like King Mon, somebody that can decrease slash resistance, will be good. Yes, Elena has some slash resistance penetration, but having no slash resistance at all on the enemy team is a lot better than reducing part of their mitigation, so that would be very, very strong. Then enemies you should avoid are those very hard-hitting enemies with guaranteed hits. I am looking at the Black Witch. Now, I haven't built my Elena yet. I haven't seen JP footage either. Maybe Elena's going to destroy the Black Witch, but more realistically, I think if the Black Witch gets a guaranteed spell off on Elena, even if her guaranteed hit attack is non-elemental, we are likely looking at a one-shot kill, which is very scary for Elena. Now, maybe with Courage, Elena survives it and then one-shots the Black Witch. I don't know how that'll go, but it'll be a very, very risky matchup, no matter what. Then somebody like Cloud, crazy damage and guaranteed hit attacks, you might not want to do that. Same for Valentin Solier. She's a really powerful attacker with guaranteed hits from long distance, which will likely one-shot Elena. So these are the types of enemies that you want to avoid. Yes, you have an insurance policy with Courage, but I don't know if that's enough to target teams with a lot of guaranteed hits. So just avoid those and you should be just fine. So, should you go for her? I think she has a lot of things going for her. She is a great chainer, which will make her very relevant for any kind of box or raid event or PvE in a lot of scenarios. She has good staying power, just like yours Azan, where she can grant herself courage on top of her evasion and decent HP, and I really like that. She can also equip the Black Rose's TMR, which gives her another way of generating a barrier, so I like all these options. But her damage is mostly single target, which is a little bit unfortunate. Outside of her limit break, you will have to kill people one at a time. Then she has very low mobility at 3 and 1. It's the minimum a unit can have in War of the Visions, and so that's a bit of a shame. Yes, you can equip Kododama to make up for that, but you need to cast that spell, so overall, it limits her potential quite a bit. She's also kind of a one-trick pony. All she does is walk towards people and use light slashing attacks on them. Yes, she has in some of her sub-jobs magic attacks or a little bit of status effects or buffs, but really, like, her kit almost entirely resolves around dealing damage, so she doesn't have much utility unless she has somebody in front of her to hit. Also, she's a rather selfish character. She has one AoE buff that increases attack and magic, but otherwise everything in her kit is tailored towards herself. It's not terrible. Units like Tifa are very selfish attackers and work really well also. But you have to keep in mind that unless you have a light slashing team that has CT really aligned to chain enemies down, Elena will not enable the rest of your team that much. She's more somebody that's going to benefit from other people enabling her. So that's my feeling about her. Looking at it by game mode, I would say for PvE, she's great. She's going to chain, she's going to be able to set up your teams very well. She also has the reliability of some guaranteed hits if you need them, and generally in PvE, you can take time to cast all the buffs you need, which is necessary for her. Also, in a lot of stages, the enemies just don't have the accuracy to hit a reliable evasion unit, and so she can just breeze through those stages as well. In Arena, I think she can do quite well, especially once you've figured out her AI and which enemies you can take down before you die or not. She will be the kind of unit that you just place in front of an enemy that you want to duel, and she'll rush forward and kill them, which seems very strong to me. In guild battle though, she loses her main advantage, which is courage. She only has one cast of that. She'll likely use it in battle number 1, which means I expect her to die perhaps before dealing damage in battle number 2, because she doesn't have a lot of mobility nor high range on her attacks. Also, she has one single AoE attack, which is her LB, so she'll likely use that in battle 1 again, and then not have it for battle number 2. For manual PvP, I would say 7 out of 10. I don't know if I'm being generous too much or not. Like, she doesn't have the mobility. She doesn't have the ability to equip most of the top tier TMRs for her genre. She has good damage in a single target, but no height reach. Yeah, so at most, 7 out of 10 would be my thought. And then auto PvP, you're going in blind, you don't know who she's going to face, so you really need to have a team that's well timed and has a good intro to make good use of her. Otherwise, I think she might rush to her death, but then again, you might end up fighting a team that's not prepared to have a lot of accuracy, and you'll just breeze through them because they can hit her, so it's kind of a hit or miss. I have pulled for her. I was very interested in her. I played FFBE, and so there's a nostalgia factor coming in here, and my account is strong enough that I can afford to pull for units that aren't necessarily meta-defining or make an account a lot stronger. I just pull for whoever I think is fun. Also, my light EX team is a little bit weaker than a lot of players have. I don't have Yuna nor Warrior of Light, so for me, she's going to be with Fina and Summer Kilfei, my third EX unit for light, so I'm kind of happy to invest into her. But that's it. Hopefully this gave you some insight on whether she's worth it or not. I know she is very hyped, so a lot of players have already pulled for her, but hopefully this gives you a little bit of help in your decision-making process. So, thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and then as per usual guys, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.